All right, picture this. It's the dawn of the 20th century. Europe is this incredibly complicated cauldron of political intrigue. It's just bubbling with ambition, shifting borders, and absolute raw tension. The great powers are posturing. And you? Well, you are right in the middle of it. You possess the power to completely change the course of history. You aren't just reading about the past here, you're actually writing it.
At its core, the source material we're looking at today outlines a world where survival requires a whole lot more than just a strong military. It requires alliances. It requires promises kept. And yeah, inevitably, it requires promises brutally and strategically broken. You're navigating this tense landscape where you absolutely need help from others to survive. But to actually win the whole thing, you must eventually stand alone.
So let's dive into this explainer and see exactly why this classic game is way less about moving plastic pieces around a board and completely about your ability to negotiate, persuade, and honestly, outwit your friends. It's a true test of character. As the rules explicitly state, you are a diplomat first and a commander second.
Here's our quick mental roadmap for a typical turn. We're going to cover the game of intrigue, Europe's map and units, the diplomatic phase, writing orders, resolving combat, and finally, controlling supply centers. Let's get into it.
Starting off with Section 1, the game of intrigue, high stakes in Europe.
So, the board is set with 7 great powers. We've got England, Germany, Russia, Turkey, Italy, France, and Austria, all vying for total control of the European continent. It's a really crowded map, and expansion is literally the only way to survive. To do that, 18 is your magic number. Out of the 34 available supply centers scattered across the board, your great power needs to control exactly 18 of them to be declared the undisputed winner. Sounds simple enough, right? But trust me, every single one of those centers is going to be fiercely contested.
Moving right along to Section 2, Europe's map and units, the arsenal.
Now, before you can conquer anything, you really need to understand the board you're fighting on. The map is divided into 3 distinct types of provinces: inland, coastal, and water. Armies can only march on land, fleets are required for the water, and coastal provinces, those are the crucial intersections where both can operate. And notice the incredible balance at the start of the game. Every great power starts with exactly 3 supply centers and 3 corresponding units. Well, there's one notable exception, Russia, which controls 4. But this slight numerical advantage is perfectly balanced by their massive, really hard-to-defend borders.
And here is where the mechanics truly separate this from other strategy games you might have played. Despite looking completely different, a cannon for an army, a battleship for a fleet, every single unit possesses the exact equal strength of 1, period. There are absolutely no dice involved here, no random number generation, no lucky critical hits. A unit's power is absolute, and it's equal to every other unit on the board. Let's see how this creates this amazing, structured tension. Every year in the game is divided into a spring turn and a fall turn, and each of those turns strictly follows these exact rigid phases. This rigid structure is absolutely vital, mostly because it takes the absolute chaos of human betrayal and, well, it keeps it organized.
Next up, Section 3, the diplomatic phase, forging and breaking trust.
Section 4, writing your orders, secrecy and strategy. And Section 5, resolving combat and convoys, the climax of the turn. So how does this sequence actually unfold at the table? Well, it all kicks off with diplomacy. This is a 15 to 30-minute window where players literally get up from the table. You break into private groups in the hallway, the kitchen, wherever you can find space to scheme, threaten, share rumors, and make alliances. But remember, every single deal made here is completely non-binding. You can look someone right in the eye, promise them the world, and then immediately stab them in the back. Once that negotiation timer rings, the talking stops, everyone returns to the table, falls completely silent, and secretly writes down formatted instructions for all their units. Then comes the climax, the order resolution phase. All players simultaneously reveal their written orders, and because everything happens at the exact same time, the board state becomes this wildly complex web of intersecting actions. When writing those orders, you can command your units to do one of 4 specific actions. They can hold their ground, they can move to attack an adjacent province, they can support another unit, or they can convoy. Just keep in mind that only fleets are capable of convoying an army, acting as a sort of bridge to transport them across water provinces. Now, because there are no dice, and every unit has a base strength of 1, direct clashes result in what's known as a standoff. If my army moves into a province, and your army moves into that exact same province, we just bounce right off each other. It basically results in a frustrating traffic jam, where nobody advances and everyone stays exactly where they started. Which naturally leads us to the most important question of the whole game. If every unit is equal, and direct attacks just bounce, how on earth do you actually conquer territory? Like, how do you win a battle? Well, this brings us to the most critical, and honestly, most complex mechanic of the entire rulebook. It's the only way to break a standoff.
The answer is the support order. A unit actually gives up its own movement to add its strength to another unit. Think about it. A unit with 1 supporter has a strength of 2. A unit with 2 supporters has a strength of 3. This means teamwork is absolutely mandatory to advance. You literally cannot win without coordinating multiple units, and very often you need to convince another player to use their units to support yours.
And this brilliantly illustrates the tactical depth of the game, something called cutting support. If a unit is busy giving support to an attack, and someone attacks them from the side, they get distracted. Their support is immediately cancelled. This means a tiny, seemingly insignificant distraction attack on the flank can completely ruin a massive, heavily supported invasion elsewhere on the board. It's brilliant.
Finally, Section 6, Controlling Supply Centers, the Fallout.
After all the moves, supports, and cut supports are mathematically resolved, the dust finally settles on the battlefield. Units advance, standoffs occur, and importantly, some units are completely overpowered. When a unit is hit by a force with a higher strength number, they are dislodged, and the map changes permanently. Now, if your unit is dislodged, you enter the retreat phase. Defeated commanders must write their retreat orders immediately, secretly, and most importantly, without any diplomatic discussion whatsoever. You cannot talk to anyone. And get this, if 2 players accidentally retreat into the same empty province, both units are destroyed. You are completely on your own in defeat.
At the end of every fall turn, winter sets in. You must harshly reconcile your unit count. If you manage to conquer new supply centers this year, awesome! You get to build new armies or fleets back in your home country. But if you lost territory, you must immediately disband units from the board until your military matches the exact number of supply centers you successfully control. It's brutal.
So we hope this explainer leaves you ready to navigate the treachery of Europe. When military might is perfectly equal and no dice will save you, the only weapon you truly have is your word and your willingness to break it. Knowing exactly when to trust your neighbor and exactly when to strike them down is literally the only way to win. So, who will you betray first?